Welcome friends to another r/am I the jerk here video. Today we've got a lot of hard-hitting questions. And our first story is from Remarkable Low 6689. Am I the jerk for shaming my sister after I found a condom under my bed? Some info about me. I'm 23-year-old female and I'm a sex-repulsed asexual. However, if someone loves it, I'm never ever rude to them or think bad about them. If they have a healthy sex life and they're happy, I'm happy for them too. So into the problem. My sister, 26-year-old female, came to visit me with her fiance 4 days ago. They got engaged 2 weeks ago and I'm so happy for them. My sister knows that I'm asexual and how I feel about it in general. I asked her as nicely as I could that if they do anything sexual in the house that I don't want to see or hear anything, or if they could wait until I left for school or the work or gym. She agreed and I thought that was it. However, the first night that they were here, I woke up to the weird sound and it took me a moment to realize what it was. They were hooking up in the next room, very loudly. They didn't even close mine or their doors. I just put my headphones on and listened to some music. Needless to say, I didn't sleep well at all, and it affected my school and job performance the next morning. There were a few more incidents after that when they hooked up in the shower and then again at night. The next morning, I asked her again as politely as I could if they could keep it down and wait till I leave the house. She smirked, apologized, and said it won't happen again and not to worry. Anyways, I was cleaning my room this morning and saw some trash under my bed. So I just took it out and when I saw what it was, I almost threw up. It was a used condom. I screamed, threw it on the floor, and just stood there in shock. My sister came to my room to see what was going on, and when she saw it, she looked surprised and then freaking laughed about it. She said, "Oops, sorry." I was so mortified, and I could feel how I was about to cry, which is stupid, I know. I asked her if they did it on my bed. Why didn't they clean up after themselves? She looked at me like I was a crazy person and just told me to stop overreacting and that people in a real relationship have sex all the time. How I should stop making being asexual and gay into my personality, and that I need to grow up and that normal men and women are meant to have sex with each other and so on. This triggered me a lot since a lot of people have rejected me in the past because of my sexuality, which they have 100% the right to do. Anyways, this is where I could be the jerk. I told her that this is my house and these are my rules. And if they can't respect that, they can freak off. And also that if two grown butt people can't go 1 week without hooking up, it's very pathetic and sad, and they need to learn to control themselves better. She got really upset and started to cry. Her fiance was in a store, so she called them and they left. They messaged me and said that I was a jerk and I shamed my sister for being in love and that I need therapy for my problems. I don't think OP's the jerk here because while it's totally fine for them to be hooking up however much they want, it's not okay for them to be just doing it all over the house. There's a serious issue if they're going and doing it in somebody else's house that's not even theirs on somebody else's bed. That's just all kinds of messed up. If you were in a situation like OP where you found out that your own sibling slept on your bed and left used protection on your floor and also was not remorseful one bit about it, would you want to kick them out of your own house? Let me know how you guys would handle it in the comments down below. Our next story is from Emotional Duty 5051. Am I the jerk for making my daughter share her presents with my stepdaughter? I, 40-year-old female, was a single mother to my daughter Amy, 15-year-old female. I came out 3 years ago and married my wife Jenna, 42-year-old female, last year. She has a daughter, Nora, 13-year-old female. We all live together as I have full custody of my daughter. It was kind of hard for her to adjust to having a second mom, but they got along well. The girls have their birthdays very close, only 2 days apart. So we decided to have a joint birthday party for both of them, since Nora had a hard time making new friends. They moved in with us and she's very shy. Most of my family lives out of the country, so the gifts were sent a week early. It was a huge bag with at least 20 gifts. The party was nice and we opened the bag at night once everyone left. Jenna handed out the presents as she took them out. After 12 gifts in a row just for Amy, I checked the bag and froze to see that there was only one gift for Nora from my parents. She pretended it wasn't a big deal, but as she opened the present, I saw her eyes drop. It was a $15 tumbler from Walmart. Not to sound ungrateful, but Amy's gifts were much more expensive. Lots of gift cards over $100, a new phone, limited edition Funkos, designer clothes, and lots of cards wishing her a happy birthday. Needless to say, I blew up the family chat, calling out my parents, siblings, and extended family who sent gifts for not considering Nora, and my parents for the cheap gift. No one took me seriously since it's not our duty to give gifts to someone else's kid, and Amy deserved them since I didn't even throw her own birthday party, emphasizing that Jenna and Nora are my problem, not theirs. Nora was clearly hurt, since it's not the first time my family's left her out. At night, I asked Amy to share some of the gifts with her stepsister. Not all of them, just a couple of gift cards and some of the new clothes. Amy refused. This surprised me since she never had a problem with sharing, and even though she and Nora aren't BFFs, they usually get along. After asking why, Amy started crying, saying that she never wanted a joint birthday party and that I force her to share everything with Nora. They share a room for space and I make sure they're both invited to the same parties and sleepovers so that Nora won't be left out. If they don't invite both of them, then either of them goes. Amy stated that she at least wanted her own gifts to be hers alone. I scolded her for being selfish with her stepsister, grounded her, and took a couple of the presents to give to Nora. She turned them down because she didn't want problems with Amy and it felt like pity. Since then, Amy's been cold to all of us. I just wanted my two girls to be closer with the joint party and have the same things. Am I the jerk? So I think OP is the jerk here. Honestly, I get why OP had the double party. The birthdays are so close. But as a kid that had a sibling with a close birthday, the idea of having a double joint birthday didn't seem very enticing. You want to be able to have a birthday that's all your own. Secondly, I don't know if this is going to be controversial of me to say, but for your relatives, I believe they really don't have to feel obligated to get gifts for somebody that is in no way actually related to them. It's one thing if it's your adopted kid, but this is a stepchild that came from another couple. It's just harder, I think, to expect relatives to accept that with open arms. And lastly, taking the gifts away to try to even the score because you felt like they got shafted there, I don't agree with that, and it only stands to create more animosity between the girls. Our next story is from an anonymous poster. Am I the jerk for telling my parents they're not welcome in my apartment anymore because they had sex in my bed? I'm 23 and living in my apartment that I share with a roommate. My parents came to visit the other day, and I let them stay in my room and sleep in my bed, and I take a blow-up mattress in the guest room, unfurnished for a few nights. My parents woke me up last night because they were hooking up loudly in my room. I was shocked. My dad came out afterwards naked, cupping his junk to walk to the bathroom across the hallway, knowing I would be able to see him. The guest room has no door. I told him, "In my freaking bed?" And he laughed at me. The next morning when they woke up, they came out and asked if I wanted them to wash my duvet cover. I said they better wash all my sheets, including the ones on my bed. They understood the implication and asked me why I was so upset and angry. Admittedly, this is where I think I could be the jerk. I did get very emotional and angry. I don't know why. I cry when I get really emotional, so I started crying and yelling that what they did was disrespectful and gross, and that they're never welcome back in my apartment because they came here and hooked up in my bed and made me listen to it. I went in my room, threw all their stuff out, including their bags and sheets, and shut the door. My mom told me I was being unreasonable and that I should think about how I'm treating them. Now, I love my mom. She is the sweetest woman alive, so I do feel bad about yelling at her. She told me it wasn't fair for me to be upset with them because they had no way of knowing the rules. It would have been different if it were a guest room bed or if they were on the blow-up mattress. It disgusts me that they were in my room where I keep all my things, where I have all my pictures up of me and my partner and my stuffed animals. I find it gross that they couldn't even go 2 nights without hooking up to be respectful to me and my space. For a little background, my parents have always shamed me for my sexuality. When I lost my virginity at 17, my dad had a period where he refused to pay for anything for me. food, clothes, etc., on the principle that I was a woman now, and he was no longer responsible for me. My mom told me that I was giving away the milk, sex, for free, and that nobody would want to buy the cow, me. I feel like this made me extra upset since I've never been allowed to exist as a sexual being to them, but they can shove theirs in my face by doing it in my bed. So am I the jerk for how I reacted? I know I got emotional, but I still feel like what they did was deeply disrespectful. Also, my roommate wasn't home at the time. I think it would be really uncomfortable and gross feeling if, my parents did that kind of thing. I feel like it would probably be a mostly similar reaction for pretty much everybody out there. I don't think OP's the jerk. I think that's pretty disgusting. And as much as they want to say, well, I didn't know the rules, just ask yourself, is hooking up in your kid's bed a nice thing to do? Could they possibly be upset about this, disgusted? Think about how you would feel if it was your parents in your bed. There probably wasn't a rule discussed because it's assumed that that's not going to happen. By the way, if you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below so you never miss any of my daily videos. That said, our next story is from Throwaway0000. Am I the jerk for taking my BFF to a wedding after boyfriend invites his children? I, female 30, have been with my boyfriend, male 33, for a little over a year, 16 months. Boyfriend has 4 children, 12-year-old male, 2 7-year-old females, and a 5-year-old male from a previous relationship. I met the children around our 7th month of dating after meeting their mom around month 5. Bio mom and I get along well. I understand her concerns of being replaced and assured her I'm not trying to take her place in any way. On to the situation. About 3 months ago, I received an invitation to the wedding of a friend. I'm allotted a +1 and naturally invited my boyfriend. We discussed the theme of the wedding, cannabis wedding, transportation, open bar, and a few other details. I also discussed these plans with my BFF, female 31, in case there was an emergency. She's my support system as I'm low contact with my family. Fast forward to the big day. After spending months discussing plans, boyfriend shows up to pick me up for the wedding, with his 4 children in the back seats. I look at him with a confused look and ask him what's going on. He says, "What do you mean?" I say, "Why are the kids in the car? Did you forget you were picking me up for the wedding today?" He says, "I didn't forget. I just thought this would be a good family outing." At this point, my mind was blown, and I'm frustrated. I asked him why he thought that, seeing as how we discussed the plans. He said it's not a big deal, they'll only be attending the ceremony. I inform him that my invite is for me and my +1, not a +5. And besides, nothing about this event is appropriate for children. He then says, "Okay, we can skip the wedding and just have a family day." I told him absolutely not, and that his bad decision making was not going to be my problem. Sent him on his way, called my BFF, and 2 hours later, we attended the beautiful ceremony. Boyfriend sees this on my Snapchat and goes ballistic on me. How could I go without him? How could I replace him? How his children felt rejected. How I should have skipped the wedding for a family day. I waited until he ran out of steam and calmly told him that he made these choices. We had plans, and he chose to try and change them last minute. That his changes were inappropriate and also not my problem. He called me a jerk and is refusing to speak to me until I apologize to him and his children. He also wants an apology from my BFF for attending the wedding in his place. Big time OP is not the jerk here. This is a huge red flag to me, and if I were in OP situation, I don't know if I'd be able to trust them again. How are you going to plan a wedding with a +1 and then at the last second they try to drop 4 kids on you? This just goes to show that if they have any secondary motive, they would rather just spring it on you last second where you don't have much of a choice, rather than try to work it out or accept that they can't do what they want to do. Also, bless OP for staying with them for so long, but I don't know if I'd be able to stick out a relationship for 16 months with somebody who has 4 children to take care of. Young children at that. I don't envy that situation. Our next story is from Hey921Moon. Am I the jerk for telling my stepdad it's ridiculous he thinks he became my dad when he married my mom? I was 15 when I met my stepdad. He met my mom 4 years after my dad died, leaving mom with me and my 3 younger siblings to raise. They were all little and hardly remembered Dad, and found it easier to go from him being Luke to Dad over time. To me, he was always Luke. I was older, meeting him, almost out of the house when he and my mom got married, and I remember Dad really well. I'm not saying he was a bad guy or he did nothing, but I was working by the time he moved in and I had a busy life. So there wasn't a lot of parenting from him because when I needed something, I went to my mom. I also didn't go to college, so there was no paying for that. I only add this because I know how these posts go. I think he's okay. I think he has what my mom and siblings needed, but it bothers him that I never needed him, and I pretty much never wanted him in the same capacity of my siblings. I thought he was great for my mom, but he wasn't someone I would seek out for life advice or a shoulder to cry on. And I'll go as far as saying he's not my current father figure. That would go to my grandpa, who I've known the longest and have turned to in times of trouble, and I've looked up to both as an individual, but also as a father, grandfather, and husband to others. I got engaged recently, and Luke and I started fighting a lot. He assumed he would be walking me down the aisle and doing a father-daughter dance with me. I let him know that he wasn't the person I was considering asking, if I did it at all. Then he turns it into he's the most logical choice. I said my mom would be actually. He pointed out it's customary for the father of the bride to do those things, and I pointed out that my dad was dead, and if we're going down that line, my grandfather would be the obvious pick for me. He told me he's been my dad for 9 years now. I was 16 when they got married. I said that he didn't become my dad because he married my mom, which he argued that he did. I told him it was ridiculous to think that because I was 16 years old. I had memories of my dad and was hardly around him during that time when compared to other members of the family. I told him I'd always appreciated him for what he did for mom and my siblings, but he needed to get over the fact that I didn't need him like my siblings did. He called me a jerk and said I needed to accept that he's my father, whether I like it or not. Am I the jerk? I think OP's not the jerk, especially when you take in just that last line there. You need to accept that I'm your father whether you like it or not. Is it weird that not only do I think that's not true, it's kind of gross the way they said it? Like, you don't have a choice, I am your father. Let me tell you, I think there's a reason where, at least in the US, a lot of states, I think the age is 14 or 15, you're able to decide whether or not somebody can adopt you. And I've heard stories where kids even younger than that have their opinions expressed to a judge or whatnot, and they'll factor that into whether or not it's approved. Also, I just love the fact that they were like, oh, I've been your dad for 9 years now, as if OP didn't have a dad for 16 years by the time they got married. Our next story is from Kay Hallward. Am I the jerk for refusing to share our nan's inheritance with my siblings? I, 20-year-old female, was my nan's full-time carer from when I was 13 to when she passed away when I was 19. My mom got in a huge argument with her, and my entire family ended up cutting her off. I felt guilty though, as it felt wrong to leave an old woman with mobility and memory issues to live on her own. She was too stubborn to get home help or to go into a care home. I spent my entire teen years caring for her on my own. I'm the youngest of 4 siblings, but none of them wanted to help, so it was just left to me. She was difficult to live with, very easily aggravated, needed constant care. My teen years sucked. When she died, she left everything to me. I got her house and all of her money. My mom was mad at this though, claimed that my nan had done it to cause an argument between me and my siblings over money. My siblings didn't say anything about the money. They were fine with it. It was just my mom with the issue. She told me to split the money with them. I said no. That argument was roughly a year ago, and our relationship has been rocky since. My oldest brother's currently having financial issues and I've loaned him some money. This has started the argument up once again. My mom says it's wrong that I've loaned it to him instead of giving it to him, and what I've given him is far less than 1/4 of the total amount I was given. I know I was initially in the right, but I'm starting to feel guilty about the loan. My mom is insisting again that I split the money, and I'm feeling worse and worse about standing my ground as time goes on. Am I the jerk? I think OP's not the jerk, and they shouldn't be pressured into giving up more of their money. I don't know if the mom themselves are after the money or if they're doing it on the behalf of the siblings, but OP was the one that took care of them. OP was left with this inheritance on purpose, and I'm of the belief that how they want to use their money is up to them. If they want to loan a bit out to their brother, that's fine. And just because they loan some out to one sibling doesn't mean they have to give money away to all the other ones and their mom. To me, that makes no sense. Our next story is from Aunt to Alice. Am I the jerk for laughing and saying, "Sounds about right," when my brother and sister-in-law told me how exhausted they are with my out-of-control niece? My brother Ron and my sister-in-law Jen have spoiled their daughter Alice rotten since she was a newborn. Since Alice was a toddler, everyone in the family's told Ron and Jen they needed to teach Alice boundaries, but they insist they're the ones in charge of Alice. I often babysat Alice when she was young. I would tell Ron and Jen that Alice wasn't behaving, and they would respond by shaming me for not getting Alice exactly what she wanted or pushing her so hard because I told her to pick up the toys she threw on the floor. Note, Alice was 7 when this happened. Eventually, I refused to babysit Alice, and they insist I was being a bad aunt because I was expecting so many adult things from a baby. Ron and Jen did all of Alice's homework and class projects for her. They frantically called me one night because the math tutor canceled and Alice's homework had a pre-calculus question that they weren't sure how to do the work for. I sent them the work for that one time, but after that, I would refuse to. Alice is now 17 and completely out of control. She screams, curses, and flips off her parents until she gets her own way. She's unlicensed and dented Ron's car several times when stealing it for joyrides. She's stolen both Ron and Jen's wallets for shopping sprees. They've caught Alice partying, drinking, vaping, and sneaking out to boys' houses. She's gotten even worse since her junior year. Ron and Jen still do her projects or pay others to do them, but the material's now too specific for Ron and Jen to understand without class notes, which Alice isn't taking for them. Alice didn't pass her junior year, and she's angry because now all of her friends are doing senior things that she can't join in on. Ron and Jen called me the other night to tell me how exhausted they were because Alice was illegally driving again, and they had to beg an officer not to send Alice to juvie. They talked about how wild all teens are and they're not sure where their sweet little girl went. I thought that last part was a joke and a laugh slipped out before I could stop myself. Ron got angry and asked what I thought was funny. I apologized for laughing, but I responded that Alice's behavior sounded about right because did they expect Alice to just magically become responsible and well-behaved when they've always rewarded her bad behavior? Ron and Jen started to yell at me, but I hung up. Many of my friends and family members said Ron and Jen are only angry because they didn't like hearing the truth. But most of my family saying I have no idea how hard it is to be a parent, much less have a child like Alice. And even though the laugh slipped, I was cruel to respond to Ron and Jen that way, knowing how exhausted they are. Now I'm conflicted about it if I was being a jerk to my exhausted brother and sister-in-law. Am I the jerk? I think OP's not the jerk. Maybe they could have tolerated it and accepted that they were venting, but if they're looking for support and then venting about something that was the consequence of their own actions, you might not have to rub their face in it, but you're not obligated at the same time to go along with it just to make them feel better. In fact, that's the kind of thing that got them in this situation in the first place, going along with Alice's bad behavior. Imagine never scolding your kid, never parenting your kid, and doing all of their work for them and expecting them to be responsible. How far gone do you have to be as a parent that you're the one doing all their homework at night for them? Our next story is from aITA 190 2022. Am I the jerk for exposing an entitled neighbor? I, 30-year-old male, live alone in a meh house, and working as an engineer, I decided to spoil myself with a nice sports car. It's a 2021 Aston Martin Vantage with manual transmission for those into cars. It has only 2 seats. Since it's a rear-wheel drive car with a decent amount of power, and I live in Canada, I decided to get a crappy SUV, an old Ford Escape, to use during the winter. During the summer, I use my sports car daily and just leave my winter beater getting dusty. One of my neighbors, mid-20s female, recently got divorced and became a single mom. Her financial situation got bad, and her ex-husband kept their car. Seeing her struggle, I let her use my winter beater during summer. She was thrilled and thankful. One day of summer, winter heater broke down. Not a surprise. My neighbor was really sad, and when we took it to the mechanic, the repairs would cost more than the car, so it wasn't worth it. My sports car takes most of my money anyways. I live with not too many things nor luxuries except my car. I'm not exactly rich. I decided to junk it and winterize my sports car. My neighbor didn't like this decision. I said that I wouldn't be paying to repair it, and sadly she wouldn't have a car anymore. She said she had a trip planned with her kids and asked me for my Vantage. I of course refused it, mentioned that she wouldn't be able to drive it, too much power, manual transmission, rear-wheel drive, and it was also a two-seater, which wouldn't fit her kids anyway. I also don't let anyone else drive it. It's my baby, let alone for a vacation without me. She stormed back to her house, and I simply donated my winter beater to a charity. She posted a long rant in a Facebook group of our neighborhood, saying I'm a bad neighbor and how I denied her kids a vacation. I replied to it mentioning she doesn't even know how to drive a manual car. It is ridiculously dangerous for someone inexperienced to drive it, and it's a two-seater. I told her she would be an irresponsible mom if she just put both her kids in the passenger seat, not only dumb and illegal but dangerous, and that I have no responsibility in giving my car for 2 weeks for her to go on a trip, no matter the car. It was a massive reply. I also told her I was disappointed with her way of thinking for assuming I would just provide a car for her when I have nothing to do with her life. The winter beater was a favor, and she was acting entitled for thinking I would provide my Vantage for her. Everyone else sided with me and roasted her brutally. Lots of neighbors congratulated me for my decision, but some told me I went too far and should have just ignored her or just said, "Please remember, it is a two-seater, your kids won't fit." A few friends and relatives also told me it was an A move to do this, and that I don't understand the struggles of being a single mom. Am I the jerk for exposing her in such an aggressive manner? Let's point this out for exactly what it is. This single mom went on Facebook to make a call-out post against OP. Basically blasted their character, blasted their charity, blasted their care. This could be Mr. Rogers himself writing this post, and I still think you have every right to go and defend yourself and to debunk all these false statements they're making. Does it suck to have to stoop to Facebook mom level of Facebook arguing? Yeah, but they're trying to smear you. Don't be mad when the truth hurts, Karen. And our final story of the day is from Material Box 3214. Am I the jerk for asking my sister to babysit? I, 30-year-old female, raised my youngest sister Jen, 20-year-old female, since she was 13, because she had to be removed from our mother's care. Currently at 20, she still lives at home because she decided she wants to drop out of college and work full-time for a while to figure out her major after getting an associate's. She currently works roughly 50 hours a week as a nanny and got this job recently. My husband and I had a baby boy 2 months ago, and before he was born, Jen said she'd be up to watch him a few days a week since she lives with us rent-free, although she does her own shopping. Since getting her job, Jen has no longer wanted to watch my son. She has 1 or 2 off days a week, and so we try not to overburden her, but even on days where she doesn't work at all or is off early, she claims she'd just like to be child-free. To her credit, she helps around the house after work, or she'll watch him here or there so my husband and I can go for nightly walks or use the bathroom. However, the issue occurred earlier today. I asked Jen if she could babysit my son on one of her off days, and she said that she had plans with friends on one day and intended to use the other to handle daily errands and her own chores like laundry, cleaning her room, etc. I told her that on her errand day, she could just take her nephew with her and watch him while she cleans up. But she declined and said she wouldn't be able to get anything done since he never wants to be put down, and her body's tired from all the roughhousing she does with the kids at her job. I told her that this isn't what she agreed to before, and she noted that she had a different job then, and she doesn't want to work on her off days too now. It's unfair, honestly, and she suggested paying another sitter, but why would I pay for a sitter when there's a literal professional in the same home that just refuses to do the work? She thinks I'm being over-demanding of her and that I agreed to having a third person indefinitely added to my life when I decided to conceive. Her comment was entirely unnecessary, but am I the jerk? Now, if you said in lieu of this situation you want to start charging rent, I think you're not the jerk for expecting some kind of rent for somebody that lives rent-free in a place, who has an actual job and is supporting themselves. But expecting them, Whether it's on a day they're working or an off day, to drop what they're doing and watch your kid because they can, and then getting upset when they refuse to or say, honestly, they don't want to, then yeah, I think OP is pretty clearly the jerk here. I don't care if I'm related to you, I don't care if I live in the same house as you, I don't care if it's even possible for me to. If I don't want to watch your kid, I don't have to watch your kid. Try to charge a rent that costs the same as a babysitter if you have to. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another Am I the Jerk Here story that was absolutely crazy, click on that left video. Or if you missed my latest video, check out the one on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.